right, so here we are, the Godfrey. We're not just Connecticut. I decided to do this because when we go to conferences, people wander by our table and they say, "Oh, Connecticut." I don't have anybody in Connecticut, and I have a couple of responses to that. One is probably somewhere back there you did have somebody in Connecticut, and secondly, we're not just Connecticut, and so that's what today is about. I'm going to show you a little bit about how to search our catalog and to look at the items that are here in the library, and also to see what's online that is other than Connecticut. So first thing I'm going to do just recently, we've been taking an inventory. It's taken us I think about 4 years, actually, all told. We had two main inventory takers who have been champions of tolerance and persistence, and have been checking for every single book in the collection. So that has led to some discoveries, some things that were on the shelf that weren't in the catalog, and vice versa. So we have modified numbers from what we had a couple of years ago, because we're at the point where we are, if something's really lost from our collection and it's not coming back, we take it out of the catalog. And all those things that were sitting on the shelf that they had never bothered to catalog, we have gotten those cataloged. So the numbers should be a little more accurate. I think I once heard somebody say a card catalog or an online version, whatever, is an idea of what you had at one point in time, because it's changing all the time. But I have kind of redone the numbers, and here's rough, it's an exact number, but again, 40,308 items are what we approximately have in the collection now. And in case you're interested in how that breaks down, here they are. Whoops, here it is in percentages. I just hit the wrong. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay, so you can see 21% of the 40,000 items we have are genealogies. So we have a whole room full of genealogies. We also have a separate New England room, and that makes up 23% of the items in the collection. But we have many materials on non-New England states, and they actually make up more than the New England states. They make up a total of 32% of the whole collection. We have materials from other countries. Again, not at all to the extent that we have the US and New England, but we do 6% of the collection is made up of information on other countries. And then general topics are about 15%. And then I'm hiding there. The biofiles we have, if you've been here in the library, you know we have those filing cabinets, and they are full of different kinds of materials, but often things are too small to have their own space in the shelf. So they're in file folders, and oftentimes they are research that somebody has done, either somebody here in the library or somebody has done it elsewhere and donated it to us. And we have lots of material there. We also have the other half of those filing cabinets are funeral orations, which are kind of interesting. They were a thing that was done back in the 1800s, and when somebody passed away, a long talk would be given by somebody of note, and they printed out those basically speeches and memorials about the person. So we have many filing cabinets full of those funeral orations as well. Whoops. Why is that doing that to me? There we go. Okay. Now, if you want to see more specifically on the states of the United States and how they break down, they're alphabetical, but not alphabetical by their abbreviations. That's why they might look a little weird, because I had an alphabetical list and then I just, made them into those 2-letter abbreviations. But the first number you come to is the absolute number of items for that particular state. And then as a percentage of all of the United States, if we take just the state books together and break those down into percentages. And then this final one is the percent of the total collection. And you can see that I have sort of highlighted in this little purpley pinky color here, the states that have the most amount of material. So of course, Connecticut, we've got 10% of the entire collection is actually Connecticut, and it's over 4,000 items. For Maine, we have 795 books. That comes out to 1.97%. Massachusetts is up there. We got 2,648 books on Mass. New Hampshire. Now, New Hampshire is a little bit deceptive because somewhere along the line they decided to go to town with what they call, librarians call analytics, which is basically where you take a book or maybe you've got a collection of obituaries that has like 50 obituaries in it, and every single person's name is listed out separately. And they did that in the case of New Hampshire, in several cases. So that's why the New Hampshire numbers are a little bit inflated there, actually. But New Hampshire is a great state. It's where my grandparents were from. All right, New York, not a true New England state, but I was admitting recently that I was actually born in New York, not in New England. Only lived there for 2 years, but we have 1,600 books on New York. Pennsylvania, we have pretty well covered too. We have 975 items that deal with Pennsylvania. Vermont, we have 1175. Virginia actually is up there with 835. Some of the other numbers are quite small, but you can see that we do have coverage pretty much all over the whole US. This is the total number of United States books is 22,000 basically, so a little over half of our collection. If you break New England out, and there are some right here, you see New England again. That's because we have the 6 separate states, but then we have 289 things that treat the whole region of New England. So we come out with 1,300 New England items and 8,789 non-New England. So you see there's way more than just Connecticut. And if we look at a map, we like to have this often when we're at our conferences, so we can again say to people visually, we're not just Connecticut or even just New England. So you see New England does make up 60% of the region, the coverage of the regions. The South here is 10%. Mid-Atlantic has got pretty good coverage. So just with these few states, we've got about 15% of our collection of state materials. Midwest has about 10%, and the big old wide West here has 5%. Of course, the farther east you go, the farther back the history goes. So there's going to tend to be more material there as well because of that. And if you want to look at what we have other than geographic, state, and country materials, this is the breakdown for all of that. So for instance, here's the AGBI coming in at 226 books. Those bio files that I told you about in the filing cabinets, those are a little over 1,000 of those. Here's the genealogies, 8,368. And we also have some on microfiche. Here are those funeral orations. Research papers, we have increasingly people are donating their research or their relatives research that that nobody in the family wants to take that mantle on and keep doing the genealogy, and they don't want to throw all that good work away, so they offer it to us and we cull through it and organize it and put names in our catalog so that if somebody's researched the same family you're interested in, you may be able to share their information. Let's see, journals, we have 719. And these numbers are funky again, too, because sometimes a whole subscription is counted as one, and sometimes each particular magazine is counted separately, but they give you a rough idea. We have quite a bit on military topics, so 856 things there. Then there's some things that we kind of inherited in the catalog for those of us that got here when we got here. For instance, the online military cemeteries, that is done person by person, and those records actually still connect and are still in the catalog. We have microfilm. I just found a typo there, 2 N's in online, newspaper online. Obituaries. Now the sources here, those are all 929.3 for those of you that are into Dewey numbers. And then within that, I break them down. So in other words, those are genealogical sources, the basic types. So we break those down. So we have books on census. We have pretty good emigration section you can see there with 184. Some on land, a few books on legal documents, books about different repositories, and books on vital records, and then a few miscellaneous world history. So all that together adds up to about 15,000 items. All right, now I'm going to give myself a break and I'm going to listen to myself. I did a little recording last night, and this is about how you can see what materials we have here in the library, even if you live out in Hawaii or California or wherever you may be. We still may have some things that you will be interested in. And as you'll see from this demonstration, you might be able to look a couple of things up and say, gee, I wonder if they would be able to check this book for me, maybe check the index and see if my ancestor is in here. I have a pretty good sense that they might be in there. So hopefully this thing is going to work. I'm going to let it rip, and you're going to hear a little, it's about 10 minutes of how to search for items here in the library, but you can do it from home. Hello, welcome to this little demonstration tutorial at the Godfrey Memorial Library. We're going to be looking at the Online Public Access Catalog, or OPAC. That is just a fancy term for those of you that are as old as I am, remember card catalogs. And when they became computerized, they became known as OPACs, or Online Public Access Catalogs. The one that we currently use here at the Godfrey is called Surpass, and I'm going to show you the basics of how it works today. They recently came out with an announcement. They were quite excited that they have some AI capabilities now, and they're not super impressive yet. I imagine they will get to be a little fancier, but right now they basically spell check for you. So I just typed in Richmond, Virginia, and I purposely spelled it incorrectly with 2 H's. And look at that. They pop right up and say, oh, sorry, we don't have anything on Richmond, VA. Maybe you meant Richmond, VA. Yes, indeed, I did. So if I click on that, I will get a results list. And you can see that they found 30 items for us. And if we scroll down, we can look at them one by one. We have George Alexander and Castle Thunder. Then we have April 1865. Virginia Ancestors and Adventurers. These first 3 you can see are each books. And when we have an image to put in, we will. If not, we'll just put this generic symbol for a book. The next item that comes up is a website. We actually have a few websites that are cataloged. This particular set is known as the Discovering the American South. And they are websites that we have provided links to. So there are 2 of them here in this list. If we keep going down, we come to another book and yet another book, etc. Books. If we go a little farther, we should find some other types of materials. Let's see. You may just be, here we go. Serials. Again, librarians' fancy word for newspapers and magazines, journals. Serials are just things that come out on a regular periodic basis. And you can see here, this is another online resource. G Scholar stands for Godfrey Scholar, just means all of our online resources. And these particular newspapers are part of the 19th century newspaper database collection that you have access to as a Godfrey member. So we could keep scrolling down, but I want to show you a couple of other things before we get into looking more closely at some of these materials. We go back up to the top. You see that you have a choice of how the materials are displayed. They are defaulting to copyright date order, with the newest coming up first. You could also search by call number, or excuse me, put it in order by call number, by author, by title, or by type. Author and title are generally less useful when you want to just find out what the Godfrey has. If you know specifically of a book that you want to look for by author or title, you can do that. Type is the kind of material that you're looking at. So is it a book? Is it a website? Is it a letter? We have many different types. And that is something you use kind of as an advanced feature. I tend to like to use call number order. That basically puts the material in order, that the same order you would find it on the shelf. And you see this one is 355. That's the Dewey Decimal number for Civil War. This one is under 929.2. That's the Dewey Decimal Number for genealogies and biographies. And we looked a little minute ago at these newspapers too. So that's how you can order these materials. Another way you can approach things is by using this narrowing feature over here on the left. So maybe you just want books. There are 18 of them under Richmond, Virginia. There are 10 serials listed, and there are 2 websites. So if you were interested in searching by category or narrowing it down by category, you could use that. You could also use the year of publication. That's not usually as a crucial a thing when we're looking at historical documents. And then one of the most useful ways to access this material is by subject. So Richmond, Virginia, out of this list of 30, 13 of these items had Richmond, Virginia as a subject heading. 10 of them had Virginia as a subject heading. 6 of them were about registers of births, etc. That's librarian talk for vital records. As we go down the list here, you'll see there are less frequent occurrences of these subject headings. So you can see the kinds of things that are coming up. Now, if we wanted to zero in on one particular subtopic, these are all coming up under Richmond, Virginia, but then they get more specific with these other headings. So let's say we wanted to find out information about, let's do Anita Dwyer Withers. Okay, and that pops up, and here she is. This is another one of these discovering the American South collection. Okay, another way you can approach this is to go back to your search, and I'm going to type in Richmond, Virginia again. And over here where it says all, that's actually a drop down, and I'm going to choose subject. Some of these 30 items that turned up may just be published in Richmond, Virginia. And that's why they came up in the list. And we really are interested in books and materials that are actually about Richmond. So if we click subject and then hit the search, we'll get a shorter list. Now we get 16 items instead of 30. So many of those items weren't necessarily quite so useful. So here's our list of materials. And again, let's click on one just to look at it a little more closely. You can see what kind of information comes up. So first of all, we see the title, the full title. It tells us it's available. All of our materials are the same level of availability, which is you can't take them out of the library, but that means they should all be here. So everything should pretty much come up as available. And it is a book. And if we go down a little bit, we'll find more information. Okay, now this is a case where the publisher was in Richmond, Virginia, as well as the item being about Richmond, Virginia. And then there are several subject headings. So we got St. John's Church, Henrico Parish, registers of births, etc. in Virginia, church records and registers in Virginia. And then we get a couple of other author names. Okay, so that's the details. Now, if you wanted to print out the entire list, you could do that. Let's go back. I'm going to use the back button. A lot of times when you're on software online, it will say to you, don't use the back button. But in this case, it's really the easiest way to get back to where you were before. So I'm going to put in Richmond, Virginia again. And we have it set for subject search. Okay, and our list again comes up. Now, notice here it says login. You don't need to log in. There's one reason you might want to do that, and I'll show you that in a minute. But for the most part, you don't really need to worry about it. We can definitely set you up with login information, but maybe you don't want another thing to worry about. So if you're interested in that, contact us and we'll set you up. Okay, so let's see. notice over here, it says add to list, okay? That is the one thing that you can't do without logging in, okay? So now maybe you want to say, okay, so Carol, you got me this list of 16 items. What am I supposed to do now? Well, you can download it. And there are two options for that, neither of which is, I'm afraid, particularly helpful. One is a CSV file. It's a character separated file. And basically that's a file that you could then load into a spreadsheet. Mark is for librarians, and unless you're really into library code and sharing with other libraries, you probably don't want to bother with the Mark records. Now, this is helpful over here. We have the little print button, and you can print this list in 3 different formats. The simplest is just a straight list. You can do the list with images, which gives you these little pictures over here, or you can do a list with images and a summary. Now, many of our records in our catalog do not have a summary, and I think that's because most of them are self-explanatory between the title and the subject headings. But some of our newer ones will have that summary, and you might want to opt for that. So let's just take a look at that, see what that looks like. Okay, and this is what you get. And you can print it out. It depends on your browser and your printer and which computer you have as to how this works. So I'm not going to get into too much detail with this, but suffice it to say that you could print out the entire list. Now, why you might want to do that is you might want to give us a call. You might be interested in saying, you know, I think I'm really interested in this George W. Alexander and Castle Thunder. I wonder if they could check the index for me and see if my the thing that I'm specifically interested in is available. And then we could do a little scan for you and send it to you for a modest fee. Okay, so that's why you might want to print out this list. And if you want the shorter list or it's a little bit like a list of favorites, and you want to do this add to list and maybe add another one and then print that out. Again, you'd need to have a login to do that and just print out those 3 or 4 that you've selected. Okay, that's something we can get into again at another time. But just we wanted to let you know that we do have many materials from all over the country and other countries as well. And we, you know, if you're interested in seeing what we have, you can get into this catalog and do this kind of searching. And then we can help you out a little bit farther if you're interested in more specifics. Okay, so that's it for today. Thanks for joining me, and we will go on with our presentation. All right, there we are. If I can get out of here. Okay. Hello. No, I don't need you again, lady. All right, we're going to move on to cemeteries. So we're now going into the online, you know, the Scholar, as we call it, and going to share with you the materials that are up there that are not just Connecticut. So starting with cemeteries, we have Ed Laput, who has passed away since, but started the whole Laput Cemetery project, was a fanatic about cemeteries. And when he went on vacation, sometimes he would visit a cemetery and photograph it. So we have a few far-reaching ones. So you can see we've got a few in Arizona and California. We have some from Florida, Missouri, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont. Massachusetts, we have a collection. These are not photographs of the stones, but they are the inscriptions from the Jewish cemeteries in the western counties of Massachusetts, and a similar thing for Rhode Island. And we also had folks who visited Italy, and they were looking at their own family materials, and they thought, well, I might as well take some pictures for the Godfrey too. So we have all of those. Specifically, there are 4 cemeteries in Arizona. In California, we have the Pothole Cemetery in Bard and the Julian Pioneer Cemetery in Julian. There are 13 different cemeteries that have been photographed in Florida from these 4 towns. So Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach, Ormond Beach, and Ponce Inlet. There are 4 cemeteries from Andrew County in Missouri, 2 cemeteries in Gilmanton, New Hampshire, And that is thanks to Wendy, who volunteers for us. And apparently she photographed these a number of years ago. For those of you that live like I do at the border of Rhode Island, we have 9 westerly cemeteries and 2 Charlestown cemeteries. Also, again, as mentioned, those transcriptions of the tombstones at the Jewish cemeteries in Rhode Island. There's the North Hill Cemetery in Reedsboro, Vermont, the Massachusetts, Western Mass Jewish cemeteries, and those 2 Italy cemeteries, which were recorded by Marilyn and Ralph Carini when they visited over there. So let's take a closer look just for a minute at those New Hampshire cemeteries in New Gilmanton. So this is the opening photo of the Cop Cemetery. And this is what one of our spreadsheets looks like. So after the photographs have all been taken, they get brought back to the Godfrey, and some brave and generous volunteer comes and types all this information into a spreadsheet. And perhaps we're interested in Clementina R. Bean specifically, and we click on her name and we can see her stone. Okay, church records. We have the First Christian Church in Jeffersonville, Indiana, Presbyterian Church in East Palmyra, New York, the St. Giustina Church in Carletti, Italy, and a parish register of Brunetto, Italy, although I'm not sure that I've actually tracked that one down yet. I've been trying to see if I can actually find the copy of that, and it may have gotten lost. Okay, so why do we have Jeffersonville? Well, this is a little book that belonged to Eugene Bushong. That's a B. It's hard to read it, but it is Eugene M. Bushong, pastor. And he started out in Cromwell, Connecticut, and Wethersfield, Connecticut, and eventually ended up in Jeffersonville. But he kept this information in this little kind of a little black book, actually, and we were the recipients of it. And so the index told you if you went to page 156, you could find some weddings. And here you've got these. So here's Kentucky, but now we have Cromwell, somebody else from Hartford, somebody from Cromwell. So that's I mean, I actually have gotten us back to Connecticut, but there are also all those Indiana records in there. Okay, sorry. Directories. We have many directories, and the bulk of them, again, are Connecticut, central Connecticut, but we also have these others. So we have a general city directory for Chicago from 1844. We have Halpin's city directory from 1865-66, and that is so large that it had to be put up in 11 different parts. We have the Boston directory, the city record from 1848 to 49. We have the Elmira Heights and Horseheads, New York Manning directory for the year beginning 1930. We have the Lockport, New York City 1923. Don't ask me how these all got here, but they did. We have Manhattan and Bronx from 1898, 1899. And we have the Yates, Schuyler, Tompkins, and Seneca counties, New York farm directory. So those farm directories are often the kind of the equivalent of a city directory, but they would cover several smaller towns in the countryside. So we're going to take a look at Lockport, and I personally did not know where Lockport was, even though I was born in New York. This is way up by the lakes here. You see Lockport, so I looked it up just to see where it was. And here's, a typical city directory page. So you've got people's names. They'll tell you this EMP is usually where they worked, where they were employed, and the RES is their residence. Okay, and you can see here's Catherine was a stenographer, Catherine Barry. So there's all kinds of interesting material you can find in these. I love directories. They have all kinds of cool stuff. And ads as well. And this one just kind of cracked me up. This is, you are what you eat. Some foods nourish and benefit you, while others merely fill you up. When it is possible to buy better ingredients than we now use, we will do so. We aim to please. And then this is for those of you like me, it's kind of like fingernails on a chalkboard when people spell things like cream with a K or fried cakes. That's a K is supposed to be there, but there's a K instead of a C. Sold only in boxes. So the ads are just as fun as anything else to look. All right, we're going to look at the helpful websites, and this is a real bang for your buck. This is Mostly taken care of by Kathy Maxim, who is one of our long-time volunteers. And when she's not working on other projects, she's always got this on the back burner. She comes in here and she is kind of curating all of these websites. None of them are our own. They are all websites that are out there that may help you in your genealogy. And as you know, there are thousands, millions of websites out there, but Kathy has kind of helped organize them for us. So they're in categories and then listed by state down the left-hand side. And so for an example, we'll go to Missouri genealogies and see what comes up. So we get this list of all the possible sites, and you'll probably find some that don't link through anymore, even though Kathy just went through all of these and checked them. But as you know, they're going to change almost by the day. So if you do get in here and you find some that aren't working, let us know, and we'll just go in and we'll find a replacement, or we'll just remove them from the list. So let's say we're going to look at this look to the past genealogy records. Let's see what that is. So we go in, and this is the website. And then, as is so true with doing things on the internet, something leads to something else, which leads to something else, which leads to something else. So over here, we have Missouri vital records by county. We click on that. And we can click on any one of these links and find more information. So there's tons of information at your fingertips there. All right, military and wars, another area that we're pretty well stocked on, and they are arranged first by the particular conflict, and then within that, sometimes you'll get them broken down geographically. So here's the earliest wars, French and Indian War, and Connecticut again, sorry, but here's New York. So we have the muster rolls of New York provincial troops from 1755 to 1765. And if you go and check the index, I decided I was going to look at Jacob Quackenboss. I know there's a children's author whose last name is Quackenbush, and I imagine they were both in the Westchester County area and were probably originally from the Netherlands. And there were several pages, but if we go here to this page 21, here he is, and here he's listed in a particular, here's a muster roll. So this is who he was serving under, and he was encamped in 1755. Okay, we'll get to the Revolutionary War, and we have so many materials on that. We do have them broken down then geographically. So we'll take a look at just some of the fun ones that are under several of these. We'll start with Delaware. And this, we have the Delaware Archives and 3 volumes of military rolls. And so you can see they cover all kinds of different, this starts actually back in pre-revolution. We got King George's war rolls, French and Indian war rolls, Colonel John Hazlitt's regiment, Colonel Samuel Patterson's battalion, the Flying Camp, and Colonel David Hall's regiment, and then listing the smaller groups within that. So lots of information there about who was serving. Now we have Georgia. Georgia has a roster of the Revolution. Pretty much every state that was a state at that time has one of these lists, and we have digitized a good chunk of them. This is kind of interesting. In the back of that particular book, the supplement to Georgia's roster of the Revolution, names taken from original documents on file in the Department of Archives and History. And these are the account of certificates granted for bounty land to refugees, citizens, and Minutemen. So Georgia happened to be a state that during the Revolution did offer bounty land to some of the people that had fought in the war. And here's another weekly return of the Delaware Battalion Flying Camp, commanded by Colonel Samuel Patterson of Perth Amboy. Okay, Maine. Maine has 4 different things: alphabetical list of pensioners, Colonel Mitchell's regiment, Maine at Valley Forge, and names of soldiers of the American Revolution from Maine. We'll just take a quick look at Maine at Valley Forge and see what that looks like. Okay, so here's a list of this guy was an ensign from Wells, Maine. There were your sergeants, corporals. There's a fifer, probably a young man or even a boy. And then privates, and then they give you even a little bit more information beyond just the name. This person was on furlough. This person died on January 25th of 1778. This person was sick in the General Hospital in Albany. So a lot of little interesting facts there. And we'll look at Maryland in the Revolution. And here's their table of contents for this particular from the Archives of Maryland. They also had a flying camp group. These were groups that were moved around rather than staying in one place the whole time. And we have all kinds of artillery rolls of Maryland men and Lee's dragoons. Lots of info for you there. Revolutionary in war in New Hampshire. So they had the Loyalist refugees of New Hampshire, and then several different volumes from this state papers of New Hampshire, giving soldiers from the Revolutionary War. We'll look at these Loyalists. Probably most of you, well, I don't know most of you, but I had Loyalists in my family. A lot of people did. So this starts out with a number of Loyalists in New Hampshire, early flights from the colony, get out while the getting was good, I guess. The New Hampshire refugees with Burgoyne and the British at New York. We got suspicion of the Quakers and proscription of the Tories, confiscation of Tory property. You can find lists other places of the people who got reimbursed by the British government for having their property taken away during the Revolution. The migration of some of the New Hampshire Loyalists to Annapolis. I'm highly suspecting that's Annapolis, Nova Scotia, not Annapolis, Maryland. Okay, so lots of Loyalist info there. And here's a little section I took out about Digby, just because we have friends from Digby, Nova Scotia, and we've been up there. So here was a little more specifics about these Loyalists that went to Digby. Okay, New Jersey and New York. We got good old Rhode Island. Okay, Rhode Island has two books. The Spirit of 76 in Rhode Island I found very intriguing because this is out of the introduction, and there were several pages that specifically gave a couple of paragraphs about women and their involvement. So it says, the women also of Rhode Island, with all the sympathies peculiar to their sex, took an active part in sustaining the great cause, and a more noble race of women never existed. History can furnish but few instances of greater sacrifices and efforts than were made by them to aid their country. Mothers and daughters not only performed all the necessary work indoors, but much of the outdoor labor on the farms was done by them while their husbands and brothers were at the camp. We could fill a volume with what we have been told by them of their efforts, their sacrifices, their anxieties, their feelings and sufferings, and the great struggle for independence. Since the first act of Congress was passed, granting pensions to the widows of officers and soldiers of the Revolution. We will mention a few specimens of female efforts and add their names as a tribute to their memory. So that's a place you might not have, or some type of material you might not have expected to find. Here's, we got Virginia and Vermont. Okay, then we get into the Civil War. And again, lots and lots of material. These are general that don't apply to one particular state. But this is kind of an interesting one here. I just wanted to share this with you. This is the roster of Confederate soldiers. These are volumes 2 and 3. This set came to us from a gentleman who had been, how do we politely say, well, dumpster diving, basically. And he found this set of books, which were pretty cool. And we put them all in the collection, except for these 2 volumes were so badly affected by their time in the dumpster that we actually digitized them and then we threw them out. But we do have the information saved here, and the rest of the volumes are on our shelves. Okay. Let's look at Massachusetts. Tons of Massachusetts stuff. Here's a history of Massachusetts in the Civil War. 2-volume set. I just pulled this one out because I had ancestors from Grafton, and it just gives you a little bit, kind of an overview, not name by name, but what that particular company in that town did. So this company was formed, went to Camp Scott in Worcester, became Company G of the 15th Regiment Massachusetts Volunteers for 3 years service. A committee of 13 was chosen from different sections of the town, to whom, in connection with the selectmen, was given the management of the expenditure of the money and the general supervision of war matters, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, then we have, oops, sorry, those just came out in the wrong order. Okay, Civil War in Pennsylvania. Okay. And these are the offerings there. You can see there were specific groups that had, they have a whole book about a particular group within the war effort and what what experiences they had during the war. So we'll look at the history of the Philadelphia Brigade. And this is the 106th Regiment. Here's a roll of dead. And again, fascinating details here. This guy was killed at Gettysburg. This one died in Falmouth, Virginia, of wounds received at Fredericksburg. This one was killed accidentally at Camp Observation, Maryland, February 26, 1862. And it continues on telling you what these fellows died from. Okay, we have historic newspapers. I didn't put any of these up here, but the New Jersey Archives is a collection of state sponsored materials, archives, and they took snippings from newspapers in mostly the New York, Connecticut area, New Jersey, both during the colonial period and during the Revolution. And you can read these little extracts. So they're actually in books, but the original material was in an old newspaper. Okay, the People of Color section. We have this one, which came to us from Susan L. McCabe, who is down in the Winchester area. And this was manumission cases. So when slaves were given their freedom by their original owners, and she collated all this information similar to what we've done here that Al and Terry and other people worked on to find these, bring these records together so they're easier to find. Okay, state and local history is just full of fascinating things. And again, start out with New England and Connecticut, but we have all these other states as well. So here's what Iowa has to offer. And I just grabbed one of them, the Iowa Historical Record. This is the table of contents. And the second article here is about the Cardiff Giant deception. I don't know how many of you have ever heard about that, but here's the beginning of it. In the month of October, 1868, strange stories were whispered about the streets of Syracuse, New York. It was said that the petrified body of a human being of gigantic proportions had been unearthed on the farm of a Mr. Newell in the town of Lafayette, near the village of Cardiff, some 13 miles from the city. And it goes on from there. I don't know how many of you, it's an early case of a hoax. Okay, Kansas. I didn't actually give us any of these to look at today, but we've got 6 different Kansas resources there. Maine, Missouri, and Michigan. And I just picked Maine because my parents had lived in Maine. And my father-in-law actually lived quite close to Brunswick and Topsom. So here is a book of the history of Brunswick, Topsom, and Harpswell, Maine, including the ancient territory known as Pejebscot. And this is the table of contents. Most of these old histories will often start with the Native Americans or Aboriginal inhabitants, as they call them. So they start there, then they tell you about the Indian Wars, then notable features, oftentimes the geologic features. Then they give you a little municipal history, fire companies, courts, taverns, public halls, mails, newspapers, diseases and accidents, and then freshets, which I believe are floods. Everybody's always fascinated by that. To this day, people still are kind of fascinated to read about disasters. Stages, railroads, navigation, telegraph, burial places and epitaphs, ecclesiastical history, et cetera, et cetera. And I just I love these, the way they used to write. So I'll read you a little of this preface. The labor of compiling a local history, though not necessarily requiring a very high order of talent, does require a careful and conscientious examination of a large amount of miscellaneous material. The difficulties attending a compilation of this kind are numerous, and many of them not easily to be anticipated. In the words of Sterne, when a man sits down to write a history, though it be but the history of Jack Hickathrift or Tom Thumb, he knows no more than his heels what lets and confounded hindrances he is to meet on his way. So oftentimes these guys just start out by saying, hey, it's not my fault. I did the best I could. And in the back, there's an index of names. So it's not just, some local history stuff that it's like, it'd be kind of interesting to read, but you may actually find some relatives in these kind of books. Okay, we have reasons why Rhode Island declared her independence of Great Britain, the true story of the Galveston flood as told by survivors, and 3 different things from Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania Archives, many of you may know, is I think it's over 100 volumes actually of archival historical material from Pennsylvania. And we have digitized the one on marriages, and we have a couple on the war and the lists of who served. Okay, New York, here's what New York has for us, a couple of Albany books. And then I thought this one was pretty fascinating, the list of saloon passengers of the RMS Lusitania. Any of you New Englanders probably know that there was a horrible shipwreck of the Lusitania. So this was a little pamphlet flyer of the list of passengers. This was interesting. This is the kind of introductory stuff. I thought some of this was kind of fun about dogs. Passengers are notified that dogs cannot be landed in Great Britain unless a license has been previously procured from the Board of Agriculture, London. License can only be obtained by direct application to the board before the dog is taken on board. Then also notice passengers are informed that professional gamblers are reported as frequently crossing on Atlantic steamers and are warned to take precautions accordingly. And then the actual list. This goes a few pages of the people that lost their lives in this shipwreck. Okay, more. Massachusetts always has more. So there are 2 things I'm looking at in here. The first is the Boston Annual Advertiser, and that's a little bit of a misnomer.
Take care of yourself.
Can somebody needs to mute themselves there if you wouldn't mind. The Boston Advertiser was the advertising section of it, but the rest of it is actually a city directory. So the Boston directory.
I'm not sure whether we're going. I'm hoping we're going Tuesday, but it might not.
Here are the contents. Let me see if I can get to my. I've lost all my controls here. Otherwise, I would be doing some muting here. So here's the contents from this directory, the kind of thing that you'll find in the city directory. Removals, that's people that left the town and went somewhere else. So that can help you in finding where your ancestors were.
That's right.
We have county officers, city officers, police, undertakers, fire departments, banks, hospitals, churches and ministers.
You take care of yourself.
All kinds of information. And then here's the advertiser section of it. And to do this, I don't know how many of you like to watch Jane Austen movies. But we love to watch Pride and Prejudice over and over again. And in Pride and Prejudice is the lady Catherine de Bourgh, who has a barouche. And we always laugh about barouches. So here was an advertisement for Landau, Volant, barouche, phaeton, coach, gig, chaise, harness, and painting establishment, in case you wanted to pick up a barouche one of these days. Okay, and then the other thing I picked up from Massachusetts was the Worcester County, Massachusetts warnings, or warnings out, you often hear. And this is a fascinating little book. It covers 1737 to 1788. And it tells you a little bit of background about how early New England towns dealt with people who were indigent, who wandered into town from somewhere else. Sometimes they often would settle there and become fine, upstanding citizens. But just in case, there was a system in place where the town fathers would say, okay, we've warned these people out of town. And if they're they need to leave within 3 months and they came from this other town. So we are not responsible for taking care of them and paying for their upkeep. So that's why you would see these lists of these warnings out. And this one has an every name index in the back. And here was one person, it was Ruth Chester, who was a Negro, was the phraseology at the time. And if we go to page 22, we see that Chester, Prince Chester was a Negro. His wife was Kathy, children Ruth and Lucy, and they had come from Stowe in May of 1777. In September of 1777, they were listed in this warnings out so that the town would not have to pay for their upkeep if necessary. Okay, vital records, lots of vital records and these four that I'm going to show you, I wasn't aware of until I looked in here one day. And this was this record commission for the city of Boston, and their collections of information of marriage, deaths, births, and baptisms from 1630 to 1699, really early material here. Births from 1700 to 1800, marriages from 1752 to 1809. And then this was a direct tax. So this is 1798, so 8 years after the first census. But before the next one, so another kind of in-between period there where you could find out whether your ancestors were in Boston. So these are just the different covers for these and what they look like. And they were just identified by these document numbers. So it's a great thing to know about for some of those early records. Okay, Massachusetts also has the TAN books, which are kind of the equivalent of in Connecticut here. We have those Barber collection, those blue books that are basically it's kind of an index to all the town records, the town vital records. And we have digitized these various ones. In Massachusetts, you'll see these books and they'll say vital records of wherever to the year 1850. And it's always 1850. This was an NEHGS project. And that's, as I said, kind of the equivalent of the Barber collection in Connecticut. So places that you can find out about a little bit more about like which towns are covered. If you go to the Family Search Wiki, and are you guys seeing the Family Search Wiki, or do I need to share again?
No,
No, you can't see it?
no.
Okay, let's see. That should do it. Okay, now you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So this tells you, here's where all your vital records in Mass are. Okay, and now I'm gonna go back to, all right, this, except I have to get all the way to the end here. Okay. And I'm gonna share this one. Oh, come on. Current slide. All right, have you got it again?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, now the last thing I'm going to show you, this is just for yucks, for giggles and grins. The Massachusetts has some towns that have names that are counterintuitively pronounced. And this is one of my favorite, still one of my favorite videos. So I'm going to share this with you. And again, I hope it comes up here.
Get everything in.
And that's just an annoying ad, but where are we? Okay, share. Okay, now.
More done in.
Sorry about the ad, but get out of it as
Connect
soon
up
as I
to
can.
5 indoor air
They
handlers
think
to a
I need
single
mini
outdoor.
I got a few cousins that know their Gloucesters from their Gloucesters, so I think I can do this.
Billerica.
It sounds like someone's name.
Billerica.
It is an alternate name for America.
Is the double L pronounced like a Y, like in Spanish?
Billerica.
How else could you possibly pronounce this?
Billerica. Then there's an E there that everyone's forgetting about.
I like it better as Billerica. More patriotic.
Gloucester. I feel like there should be an H in here. And then I would know how to say it. Whoa, sister.
Gloucester?
Gloucester.
Gloucester?
Gloucester. Next. No, I've been doing it wrong this whole time. It's Gloucester, it's that simple.
Cochituate. This one is really hard.
What?
Cochituate.
Cockchuati, Cochistue, Cochituate.
Sounds like a curse word.
Oh, Chicholets. Wow.
Are they just trying to trick you?
Leominster. Leominster?
Lowminster.
Leominster.
Lemonster? Lemonster?
What the hell happened to the O? Leicester.
What the hell? There's too many E's in this word.
Leicester. Leicester?
Leicester.
Leicester.
I don't even know what sounds letters make anyway. Leicester? Nailed it.
Hold up a second. I know someone named Lester, and that's not how it's spelled.
Why even have all these letters if you're not gonna use them, Massachusetts?
Haverhill.
I would say Haverhill, but by my knowledge of today, it's probably just pronounced hill.
Haverhill. Haverhill. How do you mispronounce that? Haverhill. I'm saying better the sound that the dictionary gives it.
Haverhill, Haverhill, Harry Potter Hill.
Hipperhill.
Haverhill. Haverhill? Oh my gosh.
Not a real word.
Either pronounce them the way they're written or write them differently, Massachusetts.
Worcester. This one I know because it's like the sauce, right? Worcestershire sauce?
Worcester.
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 Worcester. Yeah.
Worcester?
Let's ignore R's and okay, let's ignore C's and E's too.
This is why the rest of America doesn't like to hang out with you.
I'm never going to Massachusetts. I just don't know how anyone ever knows where they're going because if someone was like, go to Worcester, or what is it? Worcester, I would like look on the map for 5 hours and be like, this isn't a place, like I'm going home.
You know, did I do my family proud today? No, I did not. But go Red Sox.
Oh, well.
Official
So
message.
there you go. Whoops.
I usually love
There they are.
plot twist,
I'm
but
gonna
this
be
year
stuck
I'm
here.
comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You don't want any surprises. Can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And make sure your prescriptions are covered. That's
Get it out of there.
Yes. All right, let me go back to share. Oh, I don't know. I don't even know where I'm anymore. PowerPoint. There we go. Whoops. PowerPoint, share. I don't know. It's gone. We're over here. There we are. Okay. So my last slide. Now you know we're not just Connecticut, and now you know how to pronounce Worcester. So I don't know if there are any questions or anything. I know I threw a ton of stuff at you. It was my usual way of doing things, but hope you enjoyed it and you realize that we have lots to offer you here, even if you're not right here in Connecticut. We can help you out.
Oh, there I am. Oh, I gotta say, when you hit Lockport, New York, I went.
Yeah.
My mother and my grandparents are from, and the directory specifically, I had them in 1905 before they got married. Didn't know how they met. 1910 they got married, but Godfrey has a 1907 directory, and it shows them before they're married, working in the same building. So
Cool.
there they were. And the rest is history.
Yeah, that's when genealogy is really fun.
Yeah,
Things
send
like
a directory. Who would think to look in the directory?
Yeah.
How did you guys meet? Let me look in the directory.
That's fun.
Those
Alright.
farm journals are really great. I found in Illinois, they have the ag
That's a home.
books,
I believe.
and they list the farmer and they list everyone in his family, even if they don't live with him.
Hmm.
Oh,
So you are able to do connections. You know, you might think, okay, well, was Ben Oshasky actually related to Fenton? Well, in the book, Fenton's the farmer, Ben is his brother.
Mhm.
And I know this because Ben's my grandfather, but it listed him, right? So I can prove that Ben and Fenton were related.
Pretty
So
cool.
some of the, you know, it's just odd books, you never know.
Yeah. I know, those are the real treats, you know, when you stumble
Yeah.
across those, yeah.
So this was great. Thank you very much, Carol.
Well, you're welcome. Glad you all could make it. We actually are taking next month off because it falls between the two Christmas, New Year's holidays. But in January, we will be back with our next genealogy club, and we hope we will see you all there.
Yeah.
And you have what, 5 or 6 weeks left if you have not donated yet to the annual appeal and you'd like to donate. Please help us out. We're doing very nicely, but we could always use more participants. Al, anything you want to add? Or are we all good?
I think we're all good. Just happy holiday season to everybody, and we'll see you in January.
Yeah.
All right. Have a
Thank
good
you,
turkey.
Carol. It was very informative and I heard about some things that I need to go online and look closer. But
Right,
thank
great.
you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
You're
Have a
welcome.
good one. Happy
Bye.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you.